And good day, everybody. This is Z Marcel Portune. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Inquirer Show. Very excited that you're joining us today on September 16th, 2019. We have a full show for you as always. We're going to break down the NFL, the NCAA football, and get to Atlanta United as well in Major League Soccer. So, as I said, we have a full show for you, a lot to talk about, and we're very excited once again to have you. As always, if you want to follow everything that we're doing, head to the premier site for news and notes in the world of sports, the sportsinquirer.net. We have our archived shows from Sports Inquirer Show that you're listening to now to Verbal Submission, which is our combat sport podcast, which, Lord willing, we can record within the next day or two. Got to catch up on a lot of professional wrestling and mixed martial arts. We also have our Gridiron Blitz, which is professional football focused. So we'll have that podcast up later on this week, as well as the launch of the technical state of Georgia athletics, where we discuss college athletics in our home-based state of Georgia. And that includes University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, Kennesaw State, trying to think of other ones, Mercer, Georgia Tech, and everything in between. So we're very excited to have that show launching in the very near future. So make sure that you head to our site and check all of that stuff out. If you want to follow us on social media, a great way to do that is go to our Twitter and Instagram pages under Sports Inquirer. That's all one word. Anytime we update on the site, it goes straight to those platforms. So once you do that, that'll be an awesome way to keep track of everything that we're doing. I know from following sites myself, it can be tedious at times to go to a site multiple times a day and see nothing. I do like that, though. It does help our business as far as getting hits, and I'm pulling the curtain back a little bit. The more you go to our site, very good. A lot of hits, a lot of advertisements, and all those things. But as I said, I understand that everyone's busy and we all have lives going on in our world. So if you subscribe to our Twitter and Instagram pages, every time we post something, it'll be on there. You can have a link right directly to our site, and you go from there. Facebook, we have two pages on there under the Sports Inquirer, those are separate words, and Sports Inquirer, that's one word. So make sure you go to our Facebook pages and check out everything there, similar to Twitter and Instagram. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud. We have our archived shows, as I mentioned, all the podcasts. We also are starting to put our interviews up on our SoundCloud page, and that's gotten a few hits as well. Very appreciative of that. So all of our interviews from head coaches and even some players, our exclusives, we are able to put on our SoundCloud, and I like SoundCloud personally. I listen to a lot of stuff on there myself, so I'll have the option for you to do that as well. But similar to our social media platform, subscribe to that, and that'll be a great way to catch up on everything that we're doing. All right, we're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, we're going to go deep into week 2 of the NFL season with a nice recap in the Gridiron Blitz portion of the Sports Inquirer Show. And welcome back to the Sports Inquirer Show. Marcel Portune here with you. Yeah, let's get into it. Well, we'll get to that game. I'm watching a national sports broadcast. It's about the Buffalo Bills and now the New York champions. As a New Yorker, it is interesting that the Buffalo Bills over the past 2 weeks have beaten the Jets in week 1 and the Giants in week 2 at the Meadowlands in New Jersey. It's always a contentious point for New Yorkers. I supported the Giants, yet they play in New Jersey in the Meadowlands, so they play in an entirely different state. So should it be the New Jersey Giants or the Metropolitan Giants? But Buffalo plays, trains, everything within the state of New York, upstate New York. Very beautiful, underrated part of the country, in my opinion. Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester, Albany, a little bit of the upstate. Well, as a New Yorker, anything north of Yonkers is considered upstate, but I digress on that. We'll get to that game in a few minutes. As far as overarching thoughts on the Gridiron Blitz for week 2 of the NFL, we have 9 teams that are 2-0 in Baltimore, Buffalo, Dallas, Green Bay, Kansas City, the Los Angeles Rams, New England, San Francisco, and Seattle are all 2-0 on so far this season. First time since 2015 that at least 9 teams have begun the season 2-0. I think what you see with that is we're going to have some disparity. It's only 2 games in. Let me say that first. Now, starting 0-2, that's bad news. If you want to make the playoffs, it's very unlikely. You don't want to do that. Now, being even 2-0, there are a lot of potholes in your schedule. You can still fall and not make the postseason. But starting 2-0 is a good sign. And we're looking at it right now. You could probably check off from the AFC Baltimore, Kansas City, and the Patriots are going to be playoff teams already, unless they have dramatic dropbacks or they get suffer significant injury. And there have been some major injuries already 2 weeks into the season. You got to figure those AFC teams are going to be in the playoffs. And then the NFC, you can put a check mark probably with the Rams, the Cowboys, and I think Green Bay as well. So you look at it, and San Francisco and the Buffalo Bills need to see a little bit more from them. And we'll get to those games that they had in their week 2 wins. But if you do that, you can really check off 3 out of 6 spots in the NFL playoffs already within each conference, just with 2-0 starts. So what that means is that you're going to have two things. One, you're going to have some very bad teams, I think. You're going to have some 3-win teams, and even the Dolphins. Dolphins are not going to lose every single game. They'll catch somebody. But I think you're going to see a lot of 3- and 4-win teams. But I also think you're going to see a lot of 9-7s and 7-9s. I know the mathematics of it are kind of weird like that, but I think that's what you're going to see overall. And also, just looking overarching theme from week 2, I think we're seeing the end of the line of 3 potential Hall of Famers and a borderliner with injuries. Ben Roethlisberger out for the season with a right elbow injury. I looked at that injury, and it was very similar to Terry Bradshaw's when he suffered his elbow injury to end his career. I was watching the 30 for 30 documentary, Elway to Marino, and they talked about how the Steelers did not pick Dan Marino in the first round of that draft. He went to the University of Pittsburgh. He's from the city, yet they passed him up for Rivera, the lineman from Texas Tech. And they showed the clip of Bradshaw, his final pass in the NFL. It looked like a simple throw. He injured his elbow. I guess it's probably a ligament snapped, and he was holding on to it, and it was like, see, career over. And Roethlisberger kind of had the same exact motion. And, of course, those 2 best quarterbacks in franchise history. And you look at that, and I was like, man, when I saw him do that, I was like, wow, it looks similar to Bradshaw. Now, Roethlisberger, very tough for him. I don't think he's going to – you don't want to go out like that on an elbow injury like he did. But that's going to be very tough for him, I think, to come back and be even a competent quarterback. He's out already for this season. He's going to have to rehab. I think his best days are done. I picked him to be comeback player of the year. I picked Winston to win comeback player of the year. But I thought Roethlisberger would lead the team at least to a division title in the AFC North. Obviously, that's not going to happen. I thought he had 1 good year left in him, but yeah, he's out for the year, so that's rough. I look at Drew Brees. The news out of the New Orleans camp is that they're getting a second evaluation right now. If you saw the game yesterday, made a typical normal pass. His right hand hit Aaron Donald's hand as Donald was going to block the pass, and it hurt his thumb. And we're hearing torn ligaments in the thumb, maybe out 6 weeks, surgery, things like that. So unlike Roethlisberger, he's not out for the entire season. But you got to figure Brees is another guy in his upper 30s, so he's not done. He's going to come back this season. But I had inklings that this would be his final season in the NFL, especially if the Saints were able to find a way to make another Super Bowl and even win it. But it's going to be very tough for him to come back. Now, you look at the schedule and the division. I think the Saints are not completely out of it overall. I think they still have a chance to be a playoff team, but the NFC is stacked right now. And we talked about it before in our preview show where you can. I said there was a case made for, go in order. The Eagles, the Cowboys, the Packers, even the Bears and the Vikings, the Falcons, the Panthers, Saints themselves, Seattle, and the Rams as being a Super Bowl contender. Now, all those were ranked in different orders, but I felt that if you give me 2 minutes, I can make a case for each of those teams making the Super Bowl. Now, those obviously have gone down since the beginning of the year. But as I mentioned, Dallas is looking strong. Green Bay, the Rams are really good. San Francisco, Seattle, those are all quality teams. Even Minnesota, I know they had a setback against the Packers yesterday, but the NFC is deep. So I think the only way that you're going to find a way to get into the playoffs is winning that division. And you look at the division, the Falcons are 1-1, very good win against the Eagles. A win is a win, not the prettiest one, but it's a victory. And then you look at the Bucks and the Panthers, and they have a lot of work to do individually. So I don't think it's a curtain call at the very end of the season for the Saints, but very tough blow for them. Adam Vinatieri, he's missed multiple kicks again for the Colts this year. He's going to probably retire. Let's see, today is Monday the 16th. I definitely see a retirement by the end of the week. His time is done. And Eli Manning, and I think he's another one that he's a borderline Hall of Famer, but his time, I think, is gone. I think it's done. I don't know when Daniel Jones is going to get into the game, but if you looked at the performance against the Bills, it's not all his fault, but multiple interceptions just did not inspire anything. Saquon Barkley, another 100-yard rushing performance wasted. Overall, Eli's time is done with the Giants. So it's just interesting seeing those guys. And you say, Eli, is he a Hall of Famer? I named all of the quarterbacks that won 2 or more Super Bowls in their career without even doing any research. Brady, Montana, Bradshaw, Plunkett, Peyton Manning, Bart Starr, John Elway, Ben Roethlisberger, Roger Staubach, and Eli. When you're on that list, it does carry some credibility as far as your Hall of Fame case. And his numbers are respectable all the time. Now, it's a different era with passing and things like that. But you put that list together, Brady, Montana, Peyton, Barstar, and Elway, that's probably a top 4 to top 5 all time. And if you want to throw in Staubach, someone argue that's your top 5 of quarterbacks all time. Bradshaw with 4. Eli's didn't have 4 Super Bowl wins. But when you're in that type of class, you're going to get consideration. And the Manning name carries a lot of gravitas in the league. But point is, though, he's had a very strong career, great career for the Giants, but it might be heading towards the end. So those are my overarching thoughts on the Week 2 of the NFL season. Let's talk about some individual games. Tampa was able to defeat Carolina 20-14. Very ugly game. You've seen Cam Newton. He's not right. Dealing with shoulder injuries the past few years. You look at now, I think he has a lower leg injury. He's not running as well as he used to. They had 4th and 1, or pretty much 4th and goal, to try to win the game. They ended up doing a kind of a reverse to Christian McCaffrey when 2-3 years ago, Cam just runs up the middle, gets the first down. As I've said on previous shows, he's the biggest quarterback that I've ever seen on the field. So he usually finds a way to get those first downs, but he's getting older. He's reached his 30s, and that's just the way it is. Tampa, Winston doesn't inspire much confidence in me as well, but similar to the Falcons, a win is a win, so we'll see what happens there. San Francisco was able to defeat Cincinnati 41-17. 49ers are 2-0. Jimmy Garoppolo has not been a great thrower, but he had 3 touchdown passes in the victory. Have to respect that. And the 49ers are kind of under the radar, 2-0. Now, they haven't beaten the greatest competition because the Bengals are 0-2 and really struggling right now. Andy Dalton did throw for 311 yards and 2 TDs, but, Bengals are in a massive rebuild right now, especially without A.J. Green. But 49ers 2-0. Garoppolo really needs to put together a solid season. If you look at the numbers, it could be a potential walk year for him. I'm not going to get into all the schematics, but the 49ers can walk away from him and not be really hurt salary cap-wise by them relieving him of his duties with the 49ers this year. So he's playing for his job, in essence, is what I'm trying to say. But 2-0 right now for the 49ers, so very good start for them. Lions 13, Chargers 10. It's just one of those games. It was an NFL game. It happened. The Lions were able to get a late score. They're 1-0-1 on the season. I guess I need to put them in that category of undefeated so far this year. But I just look at that division. It's pretty stacked right now. They had to win that game. Very important for them. And that was a very good win for the Lions. So moving on down the line. The Packers, 21, Vikings 16. Green Bay held a 21-0 lead in this contest in the first quarter, but they were able to find their way back into the contest. When I say they, I mean the Vikings. Overall, I look at the numbers. Dalvin Cook, 20 rushes, 154 yards, 1 touchdown, was very instrumental in the comeback attempt. But now look at Kirk Cousins, 14 of 32, 230 yards, 1 touchdown. We saw in week 1 against the Falcons when they won that game pretty handily, Cousins only threw the ball 10 times, and the rushing attack was very strong for the Vikings against Atlanta. I looked at that game. Very good rushing attack once again for the Vikings. Why were they so insistent on Cousins throwing the ball 32 times? And I think the answer is you look at his contract, and he's not the highest paid guy anymore. There have been some recent deals, but he's top 5 as far as numbers, guarantee and amount of years, or numbers as far as the salary. Don't force it. Let Cook run the ball. I know you have Thielen as maybe top 5 receiver in the league, but too much effort there to throw the ball in that scenario. And then you saw Cousins driving down the field late in the fourth quarter, throws an interception in the end zone. So Cousins just is not that guy and it's odd saying that because you look at his salary and what it should mean. But for him, that's just not the way for them to play. Green Bay themselves 2-0. I think LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers, the head coach and the quarterback, are still trying to work out some things. I know that the body language experts were very I was looking at the analysis of Rodgers using his hands and giving that look we've seen over the years of that snarky, kind of condescending look towards his sideline. But I think right now they're 2-0. You look at just the landscape of the NFC. They're a very good team defensively with Mike Pettin, the new defensive coordinator. Very solid squad for the Packers, and they roll to a victory. Indianapolis was able to defeat Tennessee 19-17. That's a division that can go so many ways right now. Jacoby Brissett, 3 TD passes, so he had some decent moments in the air. But I look at that division, and especially with the Nick Foles injury, and we'll get to that game against Houston in a few minutes for Jacksonville. I don't see a dominant team there. So the Colts going on the road, being able to win a division game is very good for Indy. And that's another, I think that's the division that's going to be a 1-team division in the playoffs as far as the AFC goes. So that was a solid win for them overall. New England was able to beat Miami 43-0. I laugh when I say that because this is the NFL. I never thought I would, and I know New England, defending champions, all that stuff, but I never thought I would see a stat line like that for a NFL game. And the numbers are astounding. New England, as I said, they won 43-0, and they were able to defeat Pittsburgh 33-3 in week 1. They have a plus 73 point differential through the first 2 games, which is the 4th team in Super Bowl era to do that through the first 2 games, which starts in 1967. Interestingly, the other teams that did it, none of them won the Super Bowl. 67 Raiders, 70 Lions, and 75 Washington. So the 3 other teams that had such a hot start to the year did not win the Super Bowl. I don't even think they made the Super Bowl. I got to look up the one with the Raiders. I think the Raiders didn't make it. That was their Super Bowl 1. And yeah, that was Super Bowl 1. The 75, that may have been when Washington played the Dolphins. So, but the point is that none of those teams won the Super Bowl. But I think the Patriots are putting themselves in a very good spot there. Now, New England's also the 4th team in Super Bowl history to allow 3 points or fewer through the first 2 games, joining the 70 Lions. Man, 70 Lions plus 75 allowed only 3 points or less in the first 2 games. Didn't even make Super Bowl that year. Amazing. But you go to the 70 Lions, the 76 Houston Oilers, and the 81 Buffalo Bills. None of those teams even made the Super Bowl because Oilers have never been there. The Titans were there, but that was the old franchise. The point is, Oilers franchise has never went to Super Bowl. Buffalo Bills, they went to multiple Super Bowls, but that was in the 90s. And the Lions never been to Super Bowl. So you look at that, and you're like, wow, the Patriots were 2-0 with all that plus point differential, and we'll see what happens there. And James White, another thing with James White, he was able to record his 20th career touchdown catch. And he joins Chuck Foreman and Brian Westbrook as the only running backs with 20 receiving touchdowns in their first 6 years of NFL history. And you watch this game as well. It was on TV here in Atlanta. Antonio Brown, you knew that the Patriots, when they get into screw you mode with the NFL and with their quote-unquote detractors, even though everyone who watches football respects their legacy and what they've done, they still have to play that underdog, we're still here, no one believes in us mentality. Then you bring Antonio Brown, people are saying, oh, what's going to happen with them? Multiple targets in the first possession, first half touchdown pass from Brady to Antonio Brown. They're rolling right now. I think if he gets in more trouble with this sexual assault allegation. It's going to be a very bad look for the NFL. But the Patriots figure that's not our problem. We're doing what we can. We're trying to win games. He's eligible, and they're putting it on the league to put him on the commissioner exempt list. They haven't done that. So right now they're rolling with it. And the thing about the Dolphins as well, we've seen teams tap out and quit towards the end of the year. Well, I shouldn't say quit. It was very hard to have a team quit in the NFL as far as the players go, because if you play in the NFL, even if you played high school football, you know if you don't go out there 100%, not only do you look bad on film, you put yourself in more risk to get hurt. So I don't think the players necessarily quit. That franchise, though, is making moves to put them in that bad position. And 2 games in, I can't remember a team that has looked so bad. 2 home games, too. Now, Baltimore and New England are going to be playoff squads, I believe. Just a revision on my predictions, or looking at what the landscape of the NFL is. But, man, that is really, really bad football that you're seeing from the Dolphins. They're not going to lose every game. They're going to get a win. And Fitzpatrick's going to go off for one game. Maybe Kenyon Drake gets a bunch of touchdowns in the contest. They'll find a way to get a victory, but that is a pathetic state of football in the city of Miami. Seattle was able to defeat Pittsburgh 28-26 on the road. Russell Westbrook. And the reason I say Westbrook is I'm doing some NBA stuff, so I got my minds all over the place. Russell Wilson passed for 300 yards and 3 TDs and had a 131.0 passer rating in the victory. So he has now thrown 201 touchdown passes in 114 career games. He surpasses Tom Brady as the 5th fastest player to reach that milestone. Seattle's a team that quietly, maybe because they play, it's in Seattle, they're kind of isolated. And then week 1, they were able to defeat Cincinnati, really nondescript game. And the focus on the Pittsburgh contest is going to be on Roethlisberger, as we detailed earlier on the show. But don't sleep on Seattle being 2-0 so far this year. They are going to be a very formidable opponent or a team in the NFC. Wilson's playing at an MVP level. I know it's 2 games in, but he's put in the work. They're going to be able to see the physicality kind of return back to the defensive side of the ball. Obviously, Jadeveon Clowney, I mentioned defensive end. He's going to, I think, have a good impact on the team. So Seattle's an underrated team, I think, when you look at the NFC. As far as Pittsburgh itself, Juju Smith-Schuster had 84 receiving yards in the defeat. So he is 22 years old, and so he has 2,505 career receiving yards. So he surpassed Randy Moss as the youngest player to reach 2,500 career receiving yards in NFL history. So very good individual accomplishment for him. And I mentioned with Roethlisberger and his injury and his impact, he's a Hall of Famer. I thought could have a really good campaign for the Steelers this year. That's all shot. Now he's replaced by Mason Rudolph. Now they just traded Joshua Dobbs, who was in their system for a few years, the backup quarterback to another team. So now it's Mason Rudolph, who very young guy. You figure they can maybe do some things there, but overall, I just don't think the talent is there to compensate for the missing of Roethlisberger. If they're not a playoff team, that would not surprise me. Buffalo improved to 2-0. They're the Kings of New York. As I mentioned earlier, they're able to defeat the Giants 28-14. Eli Manning, 2 interceptions. His time is done. I don't know when they'll replace him. I have to see what the bye week is. That's usually the traditional time. You give the backup quarterback an extra week or so to get ready for the upcoming game. But got credit to Buffalo, though. Josh Allen threw for 253 yards. He had 1 touchdown passing and 1 rushing in the victory. He's already rushed for 10 TDs in his career in 14 games. He's second fastest quarterback to reach 10 career rushing TDs in NFL history. Cam Newton did it in 11 games. So he's able to use his legs while he improves the arm. So that's good development for him. And as I mentioned earlier, Buffalo with the 2 wins at MetLife Stadium over the Giants and the Jets, 5th team in NFL history since 1950 to win consecutive road games at the same stadium. joining the 87 Cowboys, the 99 Washington team, 2003 Cowboys, and 2006 Chicago Bears. And all those happened in used to be the Meadowlands, now it's MetLife Stadium because two franchises play in the same arena. Now that's going to change next year with the Rams and the Chargers playing in a new stadium in LA, but New York or New Jersey, for some people, has that unique distinction. But Buffalo's 2-0, and they do get New England, I believe, next week or this upcoming week. We haven't done our preview yet for week 3, but Buffalo, hey, they're physical on both sides of the ball. Josh Allen's tough to tackle, so New England will beat them, but maybe they'll give them a good fight there. Dallas is able to defeat Washington 31-21. The very big performance from we'll start with Dak. Let's get our notes here for Prescott, and then we'll go to some another set of Hall of Fame players that are kind of winding down their career. But Dak Prescott overall 26 of 30, 269 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Ezekiel Elliott had 111 yards rushing. He had a TD, so just good balance for the Cowboys throwing and passing. Prescott, I think, has done a very good job of ignoring the noise with his pending new contract and going into his walk year. He's been, like Wilson, tremendous this year and probably an MVP candidate 2 games in, granted. But you're starting to see him hit some really good passes. Now, through the newswire, Gallup, his top target as far as receiver, looks like he's going to be out a few weeks with an injury. So we'll interesting to see what they can do with Amari Cooper and his emergence and probably see more contributions from him. But Elliott, him rushing the ball, he's working his way back into shape as well. But you saw him get over 100 yards. That was big for him overall. And as far as some notes from this contest, Jason Witten, the future Hall of Fame tight end for the Cowboys, had a 70th career touchdown reception. So now he joins Antonio Gates, Tony Gonzalez, Rob Gronkowski, and Jimmy Graham as the only tight ends with 70 more touchdowns in his career. So very big moment for him. And Adrian Peterson has 107th career rushing touchdown in the loss for Washington. And he surpassed the great Jim Brown as for the 5th most rushing TDs in NFL history. So those two guys surpassed or reached some marks of other Hall of Famers. But I said Dallas right now, I picked them to make the playoffs. Still positive in that prediction. But they can win the division just the way that they're playing right now. Philadelphia is, I still think they're good, but we'll get to them in a few minutes when we do our recap. I'm just concerned about their health. But Dallas off to a very hot start. Of course, all their fans going to have them in the Super Bowl, and for once, they may have a legitimate case. Baltimore was able to defeat Arizona 23-17. Weird game in several regards. You had. First of all, let's start with Lamar Jackson. Another strong performance, 72 yards passing, 2 touchdowns in the air. Had a career high 120 rushing yards in the victory. First player in NFL history with at least 250 passing yards and 120 rushing yards in a single game. So he is reaching some tremendous benchmarks in the second year in the NFL. So let's see. And also, that 119 rushing yards was the second time in his career he's rushed for at least 115 yards in a game. Only Michael Vick, Randall Cunningham, and Bobby Douglas, that's an OG name from the past, are the only other guys that have 2 more games with at least 115 rushing yards. So Lamar Jackson's finding that balance, a very good effort from him. So it was a strange game because we saw the offensive performance against Miami, and you figured he wasn't going to do that again, but just consistency in a very good way. Arizona was able to move the ball quite a bit, though, and that's where you see Kyler Murray had 349 passing yards, and him and Cam Newton are the only guys to have 300 plus rushing yards or 300 plus passing yards in the first 2 games of their NFL career. They're able to move the ball up and down quite a bit, but they got in the red zone, I believe, 5 times or within 10 yards or less and kicked field goals. Not a lot of aggressiveness from from Kyle Kingsbury and what we expect from his offense. So, but a very good win for Baltimore. They move on to 2-0 and a very good contest for them. Houston able to defeat Jacksonville 13-12. I'm worried about Deshaun Watson, sacked 4 more times in this contest, but in the end, they found a way to win. The Jaguars scored a touchdown late, and were late in the contest, decided to go for 2 and go for the win. Fournette got the ball up the middle, was stopped short, and that's where they lost the contest. So Houston, 13-12, it's a victory. A win is a win. You got to keep it moving there. Kansas City, it would defeat Oakland 28-10. Really, it was a game of 2 quarters. The Raiders showed some heart, showed some resiliency, and actually in the contest. And then the second quarter began. Pat Mahomes threw for 4 touchdowns, all in the second quarter. And I think he threw for, 200. We had threw for more than 200 yards in that second quarter, which I think was the most ever in one single quarter in NFL history. I should have that number, but I do not right now. But overall, though, for him, that 4 touchdown passes of at least, let's start over again, because it's a lot with Mahomes. The guy puts together so many numbers. For the game itself, he threw for 443 yards and 4 touchdowns, passer rating 131.2. So that was his overall numbers. The first 2 weeks, he has thrown for 4 touchdown passes of at least 40 yards. It joins Hall of Famers Otto Graham, Joe Namath, and Ryan Fitzpatrick from last year, and the only QBs to record at least 4 touchdown passes of 40 or more yards in their team's first 2 games in a season in NFL history. All right, got through that one. Another Mahomes stat. He's played in 19 career games. He recorded a 6th game of at least 300 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. He surpassed 2 Hall of Famers, and Dan Marino, and Kurt Warner, who did it in 5 times for the most games at least 300 yards passing and 4 passing TDs in a player's first 40 career games in NFL history. So he broke that mark as well. Saying all that, he's a bad man. he's a great player, and you're looking at it right now with the Tyreek Hill being out with his injury. You think, wow, they're going to struggle, but so many weapons. You have Sammy Watkins, you have Kelsey, so many guys out there you can throw the ball to. We're really looking at Kansas City and New England, I think, in the AFC Championship game. That's the reality of it, unless something dramatic happens. We've seen some season-ending injuries already in week 2, but Kansas City was able to win the game, keep it rolling. Wild finish for the Bears and Broncos. The Chicago was able to come out with a 16-14 victory. You figure that the Broncos had the contest at hand when Emmanuel Sanders had hit Joe Flacco, caught a 70-yard TD pass from Joe Flacco with 31 seconds left, plus a 2-point conversion, another pass from Flacco to Sanders to make the score 14-13 in favor of the Broncos. However, the Bears got possession of the ball and a very tacky, questionable roughing the passer call when Bradley Chubb hit Trubisky while he was throwing the ball, and they called a penalty on that. Very shady, but that gave the Bears 15 yards, and Eddie Pinheiro, hope I'm saying that right, Eddie, we'll call him Eddie, was able to hit a 53-yard field goal as time expired to give the Bears a 16-14 victory. Crucial victory for the Bears, who have to keep pace in that highly competitive NFC that we've been discussing throughout the show. The late games were very intriguing as well. The Rams were able to defeat the Saints 27-9, game of the week at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Rams are finding ways to get victories. That's very good. Saints, we mentioned all the stuff with Brees. I think what we're going to see right now, Teddy Bridgewater, who is, if not the highest paid backup in the NFL, he's right up there. He is going to have to step up in a major way over the next probably 2 months to keep the Saints in contention. I think he can do it. They're going to have to switch some things up. Now, Hill, who's been their kind of wildcat Swiss Army knife, is now their backup quarterback. So you can't necessarily have him running around doing all the things he does with passing and receiving and rushing. So the Saints have to adjust. Sean Payton, very strong offensive mind. We'll see what happens there with that. Finally, the Falcons able to defeat the Eagles 24-20. Funny contest here as well. Back and forth affair. Carson Wentz, I don't know if he's going to last the season the way he goes. He's diving forward for passes, taking rough hits in the ribs. respect to the Falcons, though. I've been saying, and we're based in Atlanta, so we hear it all from fans, from other media members, and everything like that. If you look at the skill positions, as far as running back, receiver, quarterback, and then even linebacker and secondary, the Falcons are a playoff team. The line play is the biggest X factor for the team on both sides of the ball. You saw a very active defensive front. Grady Jarrett got a sack and was in there. Tack McKinley had a sack as well, I believe. Vic Beasley, he got a sack. That was a Vic Beasley sighting. So they all got at least one sack in the contest. So the defensive front for the Falcons played very well. The offensive line has some solid moments too. Now they're dealing with injuries, and McGarry got hurt, the rookie lineman that they drafted in the first round. I have to get word on what his significant. No, he actually came back, though. I checked that, but he did come back in the game, but he twisted his knee or did something bad, but he was able to come back into the contest, so we'll see if he can keep that up. Overall, though, crucial moment of the game, the Falcons, 4th and 3 in their own territory, screen pass to Julio Jones. He takes it up down the field and scores a game-winning touchdown. I didn't understand people saying they should punt the ball. I'm like, no, they're not going to get the ball back if they punt it from their own 40. So that was a very well-executed play. Jake Matthews, the pancake block of his professional life, and it sprung Julio Jones, who maybe one of the fastest receivers in the league once he gets going. No one was catching him. Very big win for the Falcons. Now, they had some lapses. They allowed a big 4th down conversion for the Eagles in the Eagles' last possession on a 4th and 16. I believe they got 20 on the pass right down the middle. So there are some lapses there. Matt Ryan had several interceptions, including one in the end zone. So they did not play a perfect game, but they did good enough to win the game. So right now you look at the Falcons 1-1. I think if they lose that game, it's only 2 games into the season. That might have been a season ender for them as far as postseason aspirations. Especially when you look at they've lost 2 games, including 2 NFC teams. You look at tiebreakers, not very good. But they got the win, and that was very important. And then tonight we have the Browns and the Jets. You got to figure that Cleveland's going to find a way to roll in this contest, or they better, with the Jets not having Sam Darnold. He's out with mono, the starting quarterback. Trevor Siemian is going to get his first start with the Jets. But the Browns, if you're going to be a playoff team, you got to make it happen right now. You had a very bad first week in that terrible loss to the Titans at home. Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham, got to keep their focus, get their minds right, and come out with a victory. So we'll see what happens there. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to discuss Atlanta United here on the Sports Inquirer Show. All right, welcome back to the Sports Inquirer Show, and time for the free kick, the original free kick. A sports station in Atlanta, which I will not name, is starting to use a free kick when they talk to a guest from Atlanta United. We've been saying free kick since the beginning of the franchise. We have patency on that. Now, that's cool, though. I know some of the people in that station, but still, we're calling it the original free kick because, darn it, that's what we do. And that's what you see on our site. Go to the original free kick, all of our videos and pressers and interviews, all on there like that. So we're taking claim to that thing. But we're going to talk about the Atlanta United. Now, not laughing matter was the 3-1 home loss to the Columbus Crew on September 14th. Now, Joseph Martinez was able to score a goal in 19 minutes, often with assist from Pity Martinez, Emerson Hyman, and made the score 1-0 for Atlanta. That goal was the 14th consecutive game that he scored a goal in the contest, which is increased his record for Major League Soccer. And Columbus was able to score 3 second-half goals, and starting with Zardes in the 53rd minute, Luis Diaz in the 60th minute, both of those were unassisted, and then Miles Robinson with an own goal for Atlanta that went to the Columbus net in the 85th minute. So those 3 goals were the deciding factor in the victory for Columbus. Atlanta did secure a spot in the playoffs thanks to Montreal's loss to FC Cincinnati. So they are in the playoffs, but still, Atlanta, a team that has aspirations of repeating as Major League Soccer champions, or at least putting themselves in good playoff position, that's loss really hurt them. Here's Brad Guzan discussing the defeat, audio courtesy of Atlanta United Communications.
We weren't good enough as a group. Yeah, Plain and simple, wasn't good enough. No, we were sloppy when we had the ball. We were sloppy when we didn't have the ball. We need to go back and watch it and do something different come Wednesday. Our ability to get close to the ball, our ability to go with runners, track runners. On another day, they could have had, I know the third one's an own goal, but they could have had more than the two that they had. They had a good chance in the first half. They had a couple good chances. Again, we turned the ball over easily. We were exposed. Our spacing was poor. It overall wasn't a good performance.
And that was Brad Guzan, goalkeeper for Atlanta United, discussing the defeat. Let's hear from his teammate Julian Gressel and his thoughts on the defeat to Columbus.
Yeah, like I said, I think we deserve this. Not just today because of our performance, but I think leading up to the game this week, with the way we trained. We just got to take a look in the mirror, and it's definitely not worth number one in the East, today. So, all we can do is focus on Wednesday and hopefully prepare better and then play better and get 3 points. I don't know. Maybe a little bit. It's normal that you maybe rusty a couple sessions going out of a break like that, where you completely want to kind of get away and stuff. But, you should be able to, especially if your aspirations is us, should be able to pick it back up again and, really be clued in. And we weren't able to do that. And for whatever reason, we're obviously going to talk about it and then evaluate it, and we'll hopefully change it.
And that was, once again, Julian Gressel, the midfielder for Atlanta United, discussing the defeat. Yeah, that loss really does hurt their chances of getting the top spot in the Eastern Conference. Atlanta right now sits at 48 points, and they are 9 points behind the New York City FC squad, which has 57 points, and Philadelphia in second place at 52 points. So Atlanta is at 48 points. We have a game at hand, but still, New York has made a push for that top spot. Atlanta does go to New York next Wednesday night. We will be there. We're heading back home to New York for that. Very excited. So they play on the 25th, but they do have two more matches before that, and that's what Brad Guzan was referring to, is that they host They go to FC Cincinnati on the 18th. They host San Jose on the 21st, and then go to New York on the 25th. So they have 3 games over the next 10 days. It's a very active period for Atlanta. But if you look at the standings, I said that loss really does hurt them in the standings against a Columbus team that is out of the playoff picture. And not mathematically, but they're second to last in the conference. Tough loss, though, because you look at from the standings. And I will say, and I mentioned it in our previous show about this contest, the rust factor is real. They had the international break. They're out for 2 weeks. Now, Miles Robinson and Guzan with U.S. national team duties. No Ezekiel Barco. He didn't get hurt with the Argentinian national team, but he was unavailable for the contest. So they had a lot going on there for Atlanta. And now they have to turn around and go to Cincinnati. Still a road game. An inferior opponent, but you still have to prepare for that. We'll have a preview show or preview that contest because we'll have a show before then. But those are the standings in the month. And we'll look at the West as well. And as far as the way things go, looks like Los Angeles, I'm looking at the math right now. They technically have not clinched the Supporters' Shield, but they have 64 points. They're going to finish first in the West by a good margin. And then second place Seattle and 8th place Dallas. They're only separated by 6 points. So a lot of movement potential still in the Western Conference. Eastern Conference a little more set. You have New York and Philadelphia with 50-plus points, Atlanta at 48, and then you go out Toronto, D.C., the Red Bulls, and New England all have 40 or more points. So that's a little more set as far as who the playoff teams are for now. But still, at least Atlanta has 5 more regular season games to go, so we'll see what happens there. All right, we'll take our final break, and when we come back, we're going to delve into some college football in the triple option attack portion of the Sports Inquirer Show. Welcome back to the Sports Inquirer Show. Emar Sopertu here with you. Triple Option Attack, where we discuss college football. Not the best week for some local teams. We'll start with Georgia State. Lost their first game of the season at Western Michigan, 57-10. Panthers only trailed 17-10 late in the first quarter when Dan Ellington connected with Aubrey Payne, a 20-yard TD pass. But Western Michigan just continued to put on the onslaught. They scored on their first 5 possessions of the contest, and after that TD pass Ellington to Payne, the Mustangs scored the next 40 points of the contest. Western Michigan rushed for 450 yards, outgained Georgia State 694-336 in total yardage. Once they started rolling, that contest was over. Second half was just the clock running down. Disappointing effort for Georgia State, which had won their first 2 games of the season at Tennessee and home against Furman. They have a quick turnaround when they go to Texas State in the first Sun Belt contest of the season on September 21st. Georgia Tech lost at home to the Citadel, 27-24 in overtime. Jacob Godek, 37-yard field goal for the Citadel in the first overtime session, proved to be the game winner. Several notes from this contest and why it was a bad loss for Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech falls to 1-2 on the season, so that was the second loss for them. It was Citadel's first win of the season, and their 2 losses were to other FCS programs. The loss was Georgia Tech's first home defeat since a 28-14 loss to Duke on October 13th of last season, so Georgia Tech had a 3-game winning streak at home that was snapped. It was their first loss in 11 all-time matchups against the Citadel. Georgia Tech lost to a FCS opponent for the first time since 17-14 defeat to Furman on September 17th, 1983. Georgia Tech was flagged for 5 penalties so they were pretty sharp in that regard, where 5 penalties in the first half, only 3 in the second half. And let's see, there's some more notes here. Let's see. The third down conversion was a big issue. Georgia Tech limited USF, South Florida, on first downs, just 4-15 in the previous week. Citadel converted on 8 of 16 third down attempts in the victory. So third down defense was not very strong for Georgia Tech. And finally, Georgia Tech is now 6-9 in all-time and overtime contest. So just not a good look. Anytime you lose to an FCS team as a FBS team like Georgia Tech is, that's bad. Circumstances are unique with Georgia Tech trying to install the new offense with Jeff Collins, and after a long time tenure with the triple option under Paul Johnson. So they're working with a lot of moving parts, playing multiple quarterbacks per contest, things like that. Dealing with their triple option and their rushing attack. So having to handle all that stuff was a lot to deal with, but still, you got to find a way to get that win. That's very disappointing for Georgia Tech when wins are going to be very hard to come by for them, especially when you hit ACC play. Georgia Tech is off this week, so we'll see what happens there. Georgia was able to defeat Arkansas State 55-0. Pretty much a scrimmage for the Bulldogs. Notre Dame comes into Athens on September 21st, so that'll be a very big game for them. Top 10 contest, College Game Day will be there from ESPN, so a lot going on there. And that's concluded our show for today. Thank you for listening to today's broadcast. As always, if you want to follow everything that we're doing, go to Twitter and Instagram under The Sports Inquirer. Head to the mothership, thesportsinquirer.net. Facebook under The Sports Inquirer and Sports Inquirer, 2 separate pages. And then finally, subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud under The Sports Inquirer. Until next time, good fight and good night.